Welcome to another episode of the Life Happens podcast. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Dotz, here with co-host Shawnee Mack. Sean, as always, welcome to the show.
Excited to be here.
I was going to say, should I redo that?
I
Or
don't
should I
know.
with that? I'm going to say with your hosts. All right.
Yeah,
Welcome back to another episode of the Life Happens podcast with your hosts, Ryan Dotz and Shawnee Mack. Sean, always good to be back.
excited to be back doing another episode. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. We got some funny shit to talk about today. Trying to keep it light on the Friday, although obviously it'll be airing on Tuesdays. But yeah, a lot of good stuff to talk about. So let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
Your boy Ted Cruz fucked up.
Ted Cruz really dropping the ball this week.
Really dropping the ball. Two people dropping the ball. It was Mother Nature with a full blown ice storm in the state of Texas. And then Ted Cruz saying, "Peace, I'm out. It is spring break. I will not be denied."
See you in Cabo.
See you in Cabo, baby. Yeah. So on obviously on a more serious note, the fact that well, I'll throw some facts out. We had 2 million people in the state of Texas. Basically, the state of Texas was without power. Just their entire infrastructure cannot handle what is an ice storm. I mean, I know you and I are from the Northeast, New England, go Pats. But and we this is a common occurrence for us. It's nothing. I remember a few years back, Atlanta had gotten a dusting. It was less than an inch, and highways were like shutting down, and there were cars like swerved all over the place. And people like got out of their cars on the highway, and it was just a great image.
Oh yeah,
But this is obviously far more serious
yeah.
with the extended periods of time because no electricity. Electricity means no heat. No running water, no anything like that. So people were in dire straits.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about this has been the length of time, right? Like it's not out of the realm of possibility for Texas to get a dusting of snow or even an inch.
Mm-hmm.
A freak winter storm. It happens, but for it to last quite this long and be this severe in Texas, this is a storm you get, like you said, in the Northeast. It's been pretty surprising and kind of
It is.
terrifying actually to
It is
see
shocking. Yeah.
that many of our countrymen and women without power.
Yeah. It's almost one of those stories that you're kind of like, wait, this is fucking America. Like this is happening in the United States. Like this is wild.
Yeah.
Luckily today, or late yesterday. Sorry, the 18th. So late yesterday, they were able to restore power to 2 million people. So while the fact that that number is that high is crazy, still
Yeah.
there's still 375,000, give or take, that are still without power, that are basically fucked at this point, which is insane.
That's
Um,
wild.
don't quote me on any of these stats. We don't quote stats here, but I saw somewhere around like 50 people have actually perished due to the winter storm. I mean, I don't know if that's car accidents or freezing or whatever, but yeah,
Either way, terrible.
it's pretty serious. But when something like that happens, when there's an event like this, this is why we have elected officials. This is why we need someone in charge and someone who's going to make decisions and get help and relief to the people. Ted Cruz did not do that. He decided that he had this trip booked to Cancun or Cabo, where the hell he went, because he wasn't there
You're
long.
right.
He wasn't there long.
Oh yeah.
Gets on a plane, takes off, is immediately scrutinized on Twitter and other like social platforms. And for those that don't know, John, if you want to give a little background on Ted Cruz and his affiliation and what he's into.
Well, I mean, listen, I'm no Ted Cruz expert, but I've seen enough of the guy to know that I'm not a fan. He's
I
your
also know.
stereotypical, just kind of dirtbag politician. He flip flops to either side of the aisle depending on who's in power, whoever he needs a favor from. Right? He was the biggest Trump critic before Trump got elected. Then Trump gets elected. He's Trump's best friend all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's one of those people to me who just, as a politician, just doesn't seem like a good person. Like he's been corrupted by politics, and he is now just to the point where there's 20 million people without power in his state, and he decides that's a good time to take a trip to Mexico on
Yeah,
a vacation.
not me, not
It's
me.
just,
I'm good.
it's just ludicrous. Like if someone was to tell a joke about that a week ago, you would laugh as a joke, right? Because that'd be
Yeah.
crazy. A governor leaving their state, or I'm sorry, senator leaving their state when uh, that many people don't have power and that many people are dying. It's just insane. And
It's really bad. I mean, you have to have. I mean, you at bare bones, you're an elected official, right? This is what you were hired for, at a minimum, is to run for good or, for better or worse, is to run, jurisdiction, state, whatever. Um, and for him to just pick up and go, one, the fact that he even thought that was okay is insane. Then the fact that he thought he wasn't gonna get caught is
I don't
crazier.
I don't understand how they don't like foresee this stuff. I really don't.
He doesn't have a guy. You gotta have a guy.
Yeah, they
You gotta have
in
a
this
that dumb
day
guy.
and age of social media, we all know everything gets out. You can't keep anything hidden. If you're getting on a plane, man, and you're a senator, someone's gonna tweet about it, right?
Yeah.
Like you
Oh,
have to
absolutely.
know that. Be aware.
First of all,
Um,
we're in a pandemic. You shouldn't be fucking traveling anyway. First of all.
no, he
Second of
was
all,
wearing.
yeah, he was wearing a
He was
mask.
okay.
Yeah, his fucking mask. But so that happens. Obviously, he's blown up, and then
Rightfully so.
so he's got to come back,
Mhm.
and PR team is scrambling.
Oh
Which
yeah.
it's Ted Cruz. You got to assume they're on speed dial because you never know what the hell he's going to say next. And so he he comes back almost immediately next morning. I think he left on Wednesday, came back Thursday morning or whatever, Thursday or Friday. Um, Says that throws his daughter immediately under the bus.
Both
Says
of them.
both
it
of
was
them.
two.
Yep. Says, and this is this so like upper echelon like white class thing to say, like white upper class like thing to say was that because there was no power and nothing at the house, that his daughters said, "Oh, we want to take a trip, like we want to go somewhere." And he was like, "Okay, but I'm gonna bring you, so I'm gonna fly there and then fly back immediately. That way, I make sure that you get there safe."
That's how he
Like,
sold it.
yeah, that's how he sold it. That's how he spun it. And I didn't tell you that prior to this. 'Cause I want to see your reaction. But yeah, that's what he said.
What type of piece of shit gets caught and immediately throws his children? We're talking kids, not like 16, 18-year-olds. We're talking kids. Throws his daughters, his kids under the bus and blames them. Like,
Yeah,
and again, we go back to his PR team. That was the best they could do.
that
Pin
was
it
the
on your
best thing.
daughters. They didn't think people were going to be more upset about that.
Yeah,
Like,
and then this is even better. Is um somebody at the airline or the airport something uh released that he actually had bought that ticket at 6 a.m. or someone on his team bought that ticket at 6 a.m.
the flight back.
That flight back. He was
Yep,
actually
yeah.
scheduled to return Saturday or Sunday.
Sunday,
Like it was
I
like
think
a
it was.
three. Yeah, it was like a 3 or 4 day trip. Nice long weekend. Which any other time
Yeah.
is fine. Is
Listen,
fine.
no,
Like
no
you
one's
get
saying
your time off.
you can't travel as an elected official, right? No one's saying you can't go on vacation as an elected official. You just can't do it when 20 million people in your state are without power and people are dying. That's all.
Right. Even if you wanted to bullshit COVID, because I mean we do fight both sides on the show. Like even if you wanted to fight your side of like, because he said that COVID's bullshit and like you need to open states back up and open the economy, blah blah blah. If he was taking a photo in the airport, that actually would have been great press for him. But his whole state's without power and are freezing to death, so not great.
Yeah, and this just goes back to the politicians in this country thinking they're above the law and they can do whatever they want because oftentimes they are, and that's a bigger problem. Like the fact that he thinks basically he's so powerful or just has a get out of jail free card to the point where it's totally fine for him to up and go on a vacation when his state is crumbling.
Yep.
The electric grid, the infrastructure is crumbling. He in his head is just like, yeah, you guys are right. Let's take a trip. Let's go to Cancun. It's fine.
The power
That's crazy.
the power grid, the structure was so corrupted that they were within hours of having month-long outages. And
Which
he
I
was on a
don't
plane.
even like. I can't quite wrap my head around that, but that's insane. There are people, the electric company, if I'm not mistaken, one of the
Mhm.
infrastructure companies came out and said like,
Oh,
the
it was a
whole thing
legitimate-
almost went
yeah.
down.
It was a
Like-
legitimate person from like a legitimate representative.
So
It wasn't that
this isn't-
somebody was like we're this close and like trying to be political about it. It was like people's lives.
Yeah, this isn't just a snowstorm and we're blowing it out of proportion. Like the whole electric grid in the state of Texas, again, from what like the electric company said, was about to crumble. Um,
Yeah.
shit's serious, right? And
Yep.
yeah, you can run politics from your phone and you can make calls, but let's be honest, it's not the time to be taking a vacation, and they need to know better. They need to care about their constituents, which they do not. It's never been more apparent.
Bananas to me that he got on that flight. That his mind never said, this probably isn't a good idea. Or what if someone takes a photo of me in the airport? And then his hired staff, nobody said anything. His wife, nope, nobody said anything. I
Really
thought that was.
confused about that. Unless he ignored it or he didn't tell anyone, I don't
You're
know.
right. That's actually a
There
good
could be a
point.
million variables. We don't
Because it is
know.
Ted.
But the fact that it happened and it got this far is, I think it just speaks volumes to kind of the state of politics in our country.
Yeah, 100%. And I will say this, just because we're launching and stuff like that. Um, Ted Cruz did this himself. We did not seek out somebody to attack on like the right side or anything like that. If any like Democrats and
No,
shit, if they were to do that stuff, like we will
same fucking
love
thing.
anybody that is an idiot. If you're an
Yeah,
idiot,
this shit just
you
happens
will
and we're
be
going
on
to
the show.
talk about it, right? We're just gonna,
Exactly.
that's all. We're not picking sides here. This is just a shitty thing to do as a person.
Right.
That's all.
Speaking of picking sides, we joined the Paris Promise. What are we back
Paris
in now?
Climate
We're in
Accord,
the
Paris Climate Agreement.
Paris Climate Club. Got it.
Yeah. It's the
So
club.
what is that? I know we were out. We were like fuck Paris. I was like, yeah, French suck.
Yeah, so Trump pulled us out, and everyone wants to hate Trump. It was actually, he had good points. The Paris Climate Agreement is basically a bunch of countries getting together to trying to reduce global climate emissions, push towards more green renewable energy, with a lot of target dates in the future,
All sounds great.
2030, 2040. Yeah, all great stuff.
Wait, can I just pause you right real quick?
Sure.
You say Trump pulled us out, and you said Trump was right. Did I hear that at the beginning?
I'm not saying he was right or wrong. I'm saying he had valid arguments. A lot of people like to
See
take
that?
everything he does and
sides on
instantly
the show.
vilify it, but he had valid arguments. The agreement tends to be a little easier on the new developing countries like China and India than it was on us. They were pretty much self-imposed regulations as well. China, all the countries get to say, they get to pledge what they're going to do, how they're going to reduce their emissions, so they can kind of set any targets they want. And China, everyone who studies anything about economics knows China lies about all of their figures all of the time. All the stats they publish are false.
Every number ever.
A lot.
And
we're not here to bash China. This is just something that's
honestly.
been proven in the past. They just blatantly fudge their figures and make things seem better than they are. So even if they were to reach their lofty goals, who's to say that it's accurate? Because there's no police of the agreement. Everyone is making pledges and then
Right.
submitting their numbers to the public, and we're all just reviewing them and saying whether that's good or bad. There's no slap on the wrist if you don't meet them. It's just, here, let's try and do some good stuff.
And China is a closed door country. They're not letting anybody in to regulate, audit, or monitor any of their, operations. But
Oh, absolutely.
Well, let's take a step back though. So the
Yeah.
Paris Climate Agreement was exactly that. So renewable energy, going green, less carbon emissions.
Exactly. It's
Now,
all carbon emission targets.
carbon, right? All led by the leaders of the free world. So all those countries that you mentioned. So basically, they were allowed to make their own benchmarks. The U.S. was not.
We were, but
Although higher standards.
the reason it's unfair is U.S. people don't recognize this. U.S. Emissions peaked in like 2005, 2006. We've been on a downtrend since then. But we've been making good progress as a country. That's 15 years of us being on a downtrend. That's great.
Awesome.
China is still growing, and they didn't pledge to reduce emissions. They pledged to reduce emissions as a percentage of GDP. Their emissions are still growing. Ours are diminishing. So they're allowed to continue growing their emissions, their carbon emissions. Continue polluting.
I need the lawyer that drafted that.
Just less of it per GDP, and they lie about their GDP figures on a regular basis. So like, they're cooking their books pretty much and making their own rules. Does anybody really think, if anyone studied anything to do with China and their numbers, like I said, and their economic figures, does anybody think if China gets to set their own rules and make their own figures and there's no punishment if they don't hit them, that they're actually going to take it seriously? I
Nope.
I don't. I'm sorry.
Can't imagine.
And
The only other side of that, like the other side of that coin, is unfortunately, China has the track record that they do, so it's pretty obvious. But like, if you set your own benchmarks and nobody's validating or auditing your statements, like why would you lie? Like you know what I mean? Like why would you lie unless you
yeah,
were severely under? Like you know what I mean? It's like, but we know that that is in fact the case because of everything else, and to tie it to GDP, just opens the door to loopholes and everything else on rules that you wrote.
absolutely. Yeah.
Everything's
Yeah,
built in.
yeah, it gives them kind of free reign to kind of fudge the figures and do what they want. And again, this is not an argument against renewable energy. This is an argument against a supposed agreement that they sell as this big, amazing thing that we're going to fix the world when there's no penalties if you don't do anything. There's no severity here. It's just, here, this is what we hope to do. And if we don't do it, we're probably just going to lie about the numbers. That
So
doesn't help the economy, not the economy,
the
the environment.
the environment, the initiative really is basically like
There being no guidelines and punishments, that doesn't help the environment. Like
nope.
An agreement that has strict regulations, strict auditing, penalties if you don't hit it. That's what we should be arguing for. So the argument isn't that the Paris Climate Accord isn't a good idea. It's that it could be a lot better, right?
Right. It could be a legit, like it could have some teeth and actually like make a difference.
Yeah.
So what was the idea? I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, sorry, but what was the idea behind like Trump kind of bailing on that? Was he like fucking numbers? Like what was?
I think Trump was using it as a way to continue his war against China, and just continue that fight that he was going on, because the reason he pulled us out was basically all he talked about was China.
If that's your strategic roadmap, I got no issue with that. Like if your game plan is to do X, Y, and Z, and this can help you, fine. As long as you like stay on the track. I've always thought that. Like if you have a plan, it could be wrong. It could be a wrong plan. That's fine. But if you have a plan and then you stick to it and try to help your cause, then that's okay. That's just you doing something.
And
you know what I mean?
and you're honest about it.
Exactly. And you're upfront about it. You say this, that, and the other thing. Totally fine with that. That's just a disagreement on strategy. So he pulls us out. He says, "Shove it." Now
as far as
we
I know,
re-signed, but no penalties.
Yeah, as far as I know, he didn't propose an alternative, though. That's the thing. Like, if he
Oh,
pulled
he
us
didn't.
out and he said that agreement's too weak, here's my new proposal that's much more serious and strict, that's great. But just pulling us out doesn't solve the problem either, right?
Well, he did dissolve the EPA, so he was like, we don't have an EPA anymore, so we can't do the Paris Climate Accord.
So yeah, I mean, and that's the problem, right? If he was going to be consistent and honest, it'd be fine. But his whole China argument the whole time was full of lies. Yeah, how many times does he get on stage and say that China's paying the tariffs? That's the definition of not how a tariff works.
Yeah,
Like,
that's the charge a company. Well,
5 seconds of Google search will tell you that. So I mean, again, he wasn't being honest. He wasn't doing it for the right reasons. He didn't propose an alternative solution, but he did have arguments as to why the Paris Climate Agreement wasn't as good as it could be. And the proponents of it, would like to kind of cherry pick some data to support it. I've read articles online that said China is going to hit their 2030 target by 2021.
but they made it really low. It's like
also, like, global emissions are going to be down this year because of the pandemic and travel being brought to a halt. Like, everyone's emissions are going to look great this year compared to the past 4 years.
Right.
But for example, 2016 was a little bit of a down year in the global economy. So China's emissions were better that year, and people were like, "Look, they're doing great things. They're beating it. They're gonna be ahead of schedule." And then 2017 rolls around, and their emissions grow at the fastest pace in 6 years. 2018 rolls around, and their coal usage goes up a few percentage points, not down.
That's ridiculous.
And so if you look at the data itself, it doesn't seem like they're taking it as seriously as they could be. If you consider a country like China and the way their society is structured with the communist government and the power they have as a government, they could make massive sweeping change, very quickly.
Yeah, if they say it's law at that point.
How about when the COVID pandemic started and they were building hospitals in like a week?
Yeah,
Remember that shit?
Zero issue.
Like, if they want to get shit done in China, it's getting done. You know what I mean?
They just throw bodies at it. Yeah, it's amazing. And
so
everyone's qualified. Everyone's doing like it could be very, very good.
Yeah, they are horrible, but also impressive.
Yeah, it's. I feel like, I mean, we're kind of getting to like Chinese conspiracy, but it's the people at the top which direct like which way the strengths go, and they're kind of like you said, the cherry picking, and they're using it for their own gain. Whereas if it was, just used for good, I mean, this is, we're living in a vacuum right now, but if you use it just for good, how advanced and incredible the country would be as a whole, but they're being bogged down by people trying to control the power overall.
Yeah. And I mean, China was already on its way to fighting pollution because everyone's heard stories about how horrible the pollution is in China.
Well, you can't breathe.
People can't go outside and breathe certain days. And there's been years and years of protests over that, as much as they can protest in China. So this was something they were in the process of addressing. Again, they could get it done faster if they wanted to, but China's not going to hurt themselves, even if it's just in the short run. Like China, as most of us are, as our country is, China is about China. And they are not going to hurt China to meet the Paris Climate Accord agreements. Now, there are arguments that the agreements we made, even though our emissions peaked 15 years ago and have been going down, that we were going to lose. And again, there's certain people arguing different sides of the economic, the side of this conversation. Some were arguing, this is going to create 100,000 jobs. Some were arguing,
I was going to say the cost.
Yeah, some were arguing this was going to cost us a couple percentage of GDP points, which that may not sound like a lot, but it's absolutely massive. And to the tune of 3 million jobs, I think, over the next 10 years.
That's people's livelihood, yeah.
And so, it could be argued that we were going to have penalties. We were going to be hindered. Again, that's an argument. It's not been proven. We haven't gone down that road that far yet. So it could be wrong, right? People propose theories that are wrong all the time.
So, but how do you get penalized if there's no penalties? They're going to make up penalties?
We would be penalizing ourselves by sticking to the agreement. That's what people were saying. They said if we follow the rules laid out for us under the Paris Climate Accord, we were going to cost ourselves millions of jobs by trying to go too far too fast, pretty much.
The right wrist slaps the left.
Yeah. But if we can circle back and bring this whole thing full circle, the Texas situation right now shows us that the infrastructure in this country is woefully underprepared.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
We are not ready as a country. The infrastructure is not there to go full green tomorrow. I'm sorry. I wish it was. I spent years trying to study this shit.
We can't even maintain. We can't even maintain.
No.
Anything.
In the summer in California, they take away your electricity. They tell people to stop using your air conditioner. They have rolling blackouts because the grid can't handle the demand. In Texas, it's too cold. Same thing, rolling blackouts. The grid can't handle the demand. We aren't there yet, and that's a reality we need to face if we want to make it better. We can't pretend that we're somewhere that we're not because we want it to be so. It simply isn't so, and we need to accept that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I'm gonna kind of throw a wrench in this whole thing. What the fuck do we pay taxes for? Rhode Island, the whole point at its base level, which is what we talk about, we pay taxes to drive on the roads. Okay. You tax our vehicle to be on the road. Okay. Tolls for important roads. Fine. That's cool. These roads, bridges, everything are crumbling beneath us. Crumbling.
Yeah. And the grid's a part of that.
Oh, the grid. Yeah. all of it, and not just specifically roads. It's just the thing that people bitch most about. Like, and I happen to know like Rhode Island's like bridges and stuff because that fucking psychopath from DC. Like, all right, so very short story. We can cut it if we want to, but I was in a cellos and this dude was ranting and raving.
Which is a restaurant for those that don't know.
That's right. Yeah. Shout out cellos, no free ads. So like, he's sitting there and he's ranting by himself. I'm also by myself. And so he's ranting and raving about the bridges in Rhode Island. I'm in Rhode Island. So I'm like, dude, like, what's going on? And he's like, he was sent up from DC to do a preliminary like check on survey on X. That's what it was. It was survey on X amount of bridges in Rhode Island. He said not one of them was even close to passing. I was like, maybe don't yell that in a crowded restaurant. And then he's like, honestly, he's like, I'm not even comfortable driving to get out of this state, like over bridges and stuff. And I was like, why would you follow up with that? And then,
thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Fast forward 9 months, Gina Raimondo comes out with the bridge restructuring and rebranding initiative that costs like, because remember she got roasted because of the signs. The signs cost like $3 million or whatever. And everyone's like, what the fuck? Because it was the bridge initiative. I forget what it was called.
For people who don't know, was she the governor of Rhode Island?
The governor, the governor of Rhode Island, Gina. She's in Biden's treasury.
Oh yeah, she is on his team.
She's treasurer or whatever.
Sure, Governor. She created some infrastructure plans to fix some roads and bridges, and that's all well and good, and we appreciate that. She spent $3 million putting up signs around the state with her name stamped on them, saying
announcing the project
when they got done and the fact that she did it and how under or over budget they were. Basically, like a scoreboard everywhere. Like she was calling scoreboard.
It was all those numbers that you just said. That wasn't even over exaggeration. It did have the start date, the expected end date, progress, like colors, green, yellow, red, and it was a budget, green, yellow, red. It had all of that.
And these were just added to the highway. Like we needed them. Like you couldn't have sent that out to the local newspaper and everybody would have figured it. Like, and again, it comes to politicians just not giving a shit about that's $3 million that you could have used to fix another goddamn bridge instead of bragging about the ones that you did fix.
She came from private sector, big money investments, and
it's so frustrating.
That was her focus, and it's a real problem. It's like between the self-serving, the imagery, like we're in a global pandemic. She upped and left the state to join Biden's cabinet.
Yeah,
not cabinet, staff. I don't know if that position.
I don't think she was in the cabinet.
I don't know if that position is a cabinet.
I don't know. I don't
know.
I don't remember what she was appointed to or considered for.
Secretary of. I forget. I'll look it up. But either way, keep going.
All right. No, I mean it circles back. It just proves the point that we're going to bring up on the show and we're going to talk about deeper is there's got to be a reform to the political structure in this country, and if not the political structure, just our government as a whole.
Absolutely.
I think we all understand that something needs to change here, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know that. And likewise, we're going to get in deeper into this conversation about green energy, renewable energy, and what's the real timeline for that, right? The grid isn't there. The grid's not ready. They're flying helicopters, powered by gas, shooting petroleum-based products to unfreeze the wind turbines that aren't running in Texas.
I saw that.
We're just not there yet, and I want us to be. Ryan knows I studied this for years. I initially went to college trying to be a mechanical engineer to design electric cars. This is shit I'm really passionate about. So I don't want people coming on and saying like you are bashing on green energy and shit. I'm very passionate about it. That's why I understand that we're not there yet. That's why I get it.
Just to follow that up, Gina Raimondo, cabinet position. Secretary to the Treasury, yeah, that's what it was.
Interesting,
right? Oh, Commerce Secretary, that's what it is. Commerce Secretary.
Oh,
sorry,
got it. I was gonna say Treasury would be a little surprising, but
yeah, she still has to get approved. But it is a cabinet position, and she, more importantly, global pandemic just up and left.
Yeah, because again, we're
the
circling
keys to
back to
governors.
Ted Cruz. Politicians care about one person, themselves. And listen, we all at the end of the day care about ourselves above everyone else, right? Like you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of anyone else. We know that, but this isn't that level of taking care of yourself. This is just enriching yourself. This is just greed. It's the opposite of what this country was founded on.
Yeah, it was more the imagery than anything. And as stupid as all those decisions were, she still wasn't dumb enough to get on a plane to Mexico during a fucking winter storm.
Because it's almost comical. How could you be?
Don't understand how that happens.
Nope.
It's bananas. But
here we are.
yeah,
Gives
right?
us something to talk about.
Yeah, no shit. And thank God for that, because
Right?
this show thrives on it. But cool. All right. Well, that was the latest episode. We'll all be out on Tuesday. Won't matter because maybe you'll see this, I guess, as a clip or whatever. Not now, but yeah. Tuesday live launch. 4 episodes, 3.5 episodes if you want to count this as a half. But
Yeah. So check us out. We're going to be out on YouTube, the Life Happen Podcast, if you want to watch the video of our lovely faces. If not, and you just want to grab the audio, find us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, all your favorite podcast streaming resources. The Life Happens Podcast. Also, come check us out on social. Find us on Instagram. Find us on Twitter, the Life Happens Podcast. And let's connect. Let's talk, right? Let us know if you like something. Let us know if you hate something. Whatever you got, let us know.
yeah, if there's something that you don't know or want to know more about, send it in and we'll gladly talk about it on an episode for sure.
Absolutely.